So these are the 5 pathways that your students are going to choose from when they graduate. Today, we're going to focus on the university and the state and community college pathway. So the university pathway is typically students are going to go for their 4 years for the bachelor's degree to begin. The state and community college, there's a couple things they can do. They actually can go for Associate of Science programs, certificates, and licenses. But what we're going to talk about today is that transfer pathway, which sometimes you'll hear called the 2+2. So we're going to start with the state community college. Our local community college is Pasco Hernando State College, PHSC. And the reason I love PHSC is because it's going to be accessible to just about everyone. As long as you have a standard high school diploma, you can go to PHSC and work on college level coursework. So for some of our universities, you'll see, 4.0 and 4.5 for some of them. But with this, as long as you have that 2.0 on weighted GPA, you can actually begin attending college. You do not need any test scores to get into PHSC. They will have you take some sort of test if you have not taken the SAT or ACT, but that's simply to place you in the correct math class. But for admissions, you actually do not need any test scores. You also do not need 2 years of the foreign language to attend PHSC. You will need that at the university level, but it's not needed for PHSC. So why might people go to PHSC? Well, number one, of course, the accessibility. I also love that it's got small class sizes. The classes are going to be similar to what you might see at a high school class, 25 to 30 students. It's also half the cost of a university. Regardless of where you go your first 2 years of a bachelor's degree, the classes are pretty much going to be the same, but you will pay half the cost at PHSC. And it gives students a little bit of time to decide on a major before they choose that university. So the way that the 2+2 pathway works is you'll go for those 2 years to earn your Associate of Arts degree with the intention of transferring to a university for your final 2 years. So it'll still be 4 years, just like if you'd gone to the university. While you're there, the Associate of Arts program, it's 20 classes or 60 hours. 36 hours are general education classes, and then 24 hours are elective credits. So that's going to be 60 together, 20 classes. If you take 15 credit hours per semester, which is about 5 classes, you'll graduate in 2 years. You will need to attain a C or higher in your classes. Some programs might require more, but in general, a C or higher in your classes in order to transfer to a Florida university after earning the AA degree. And then most students are going to want to meet their program prerequisites if you're going into business or engineering or healthcare before you get to the university. So the reason that a lot of students will do this is maybe that they're not strong test takers, or maybe they don't have that super high GPA from high school. With the AA program, the transferring process, they're only going to be looking at the grades from your Associate of Arts degree. No test scores are going to be needed to transfer to the university, and they're also not going to be looking at your high school transcripts and high school grades when transferred to the university. They'll just be looking at those courses from the community college. This is what the first 2 years looks like if you're working on your Associate of Arts degree. And remember, even if you're working on a bachelor's degree at a university, you're basically going to be taking these same courses for the first 2 years. So you can see it's mostly core courses, kind of looks like high school with getting your core courses done. And then your electives, which a lot of times the electives will be the prerequisites for your major. If you did not take 2 foreign language courses in high school, you will have to take 2 semesters of foreign language at PHSC or another community college before transferring to the university. All of our Florida public, state, and community colleges have transfer programs. So these are called pathway programs. If your student is interested in a specific university, they can always look up the pathway program and see what the requirements are for that. And that basically will give them admission into the university. So some great programs to look at if you know that there's, especially if it's a competitive university, look at their pathway program to see what you can do at that community college level first to attain your admission into the university. Now, with our universities, we're going to move on to the university now. It's a little bit different. So it is going to be very competitive for our Florida public universities. We have a great university system. You will have to have that higher GPA, and you will need to have SAT or ACT scores. So the state publishes this matrix every year. This one's based on who was admitted from the class of 24 into our universities, and a new one will come out in September with the class of 25. but we use this to determine if the school is going to be a match school for us or a reach school for us. So I'm just going to go over to USF just to show you how to read this. Remember, you'll have access to all of this to look through later. But if we go down the column, USF is in Tampa, there's 50,000 students, and that does include graduate students. You'll use either the institutional or the common application, which we'll chat about in a few minutes. And then it's going to show us what we really want to look at, which is those GPAs and test scores for admitted students. So this is going to show us the mid 50% of students that USF admitted last year for summer and fall. S would be summer, F is fall. You can see summer for most of our universities is going to be a little bit lower than that fall admission. So if you fall into that mid 50% for the GPA, and then underneath we'll see the SAT and ACT mid 50%. If you fall into that mid 50% for the GPA and one of those test scores, that's going to be a match school for you. If you're out of range on one or both of those, we're going to call that a reach school for you. And that's not to determine where you should apply. You should apply anywhere that you're interested in going, but we don't want to apply to all reach schools. We want to make sure we have a mix. PHSC can be our safety school, and then hopefully we'll have a couple match schools and then some reach schools as well. For all of these universities, you will need 2 years of the same foreign language in order to attend. So that needs to be completed by the time you graduate. Remember, with PHSC, you don't need that foreign language requirement. With these universities, I also just want to let you know that admissions is going to be based on your GPA from 9th, 10th, and 11th grade combined. So the universities are not going to take your senior GPA into account to make the admissions decision. You will have to send that to whatever school you choose. You will have to send your final transcript at the end of your senior year. But as far as the admissions decision is concerned, 9th, 10th, and 11th is what they're going to use to make that decision. So there's 4 elements of a complete application, and we're going to chat about each of those. There's the application and payment, which we'll chat about whether you're going to use Common App or the institutional app. Transcripts, there can be several ways that you have to provide transcripts to the university. So it's really important that you understand what each university requires, because that's how they're going to be seeing your grades. The test scores, which of course is going to be that ACT or SAT. Some schools, you have to have it officially sent from College Board or ACT. Some schools allow you to self-report it on their portal. And then some schools, this would be more so private schools or out-of-state public and private schools, it's going to be test optional, where they're really just more so going to use your GPA and the rigor of your coursework to make that decision. And then the most important part, and this is the part that's usually missed, is making that admissions portal after you apply. So after you apply, you basically are going to be looking for an email from each of your colleges that you applied to of how to set up the admissions portal. And then you're going to get into each of those admissions portals to see if you have a complete application. Was your payment received? Is your application on file? Is the transcript received? Are your test scores received? If even one of those things is missing, you will not get a decision. It basically will just be in limbo until they have confirmation of all of those elements. So it's really important to get into that admissions portal to make sure everything's been received. And then, of course, that's where your decision will end up being as well. So as far as how to apply to the schools, you're going to be applying at the beginning of senior year. I would say by October 15th of senior year, your application should be completed. And you're either going to use the institutional application, which is going to be the university website, or the common application. For most of us, we're probably going to end up using the common application if you're applying to more than one school. And I'll just quickly go over the difference. So common application is going to have over 1,000 schools on there. Most of our Florida schools are on there, as well as out-of-state schools, Ivy League schools, lots and lots of schools on the common app. You can use the common app to apply to up to 20 schools quite easily. It's also going to show you the important deadlines and admissions criteria. If you qualify for an application fee waiver, that would be by qualifying for free and reduced lunch via income, then your counselor can provide a fee waiver on the Common App on their side, and that would give you 20 free college application waivers. These are all of the schools that are on the Common App that are in Florida. There's might be a couple others, but I just really put the heavy hitters. So almost all of our public universities are on there, as well as a lot of our private universities. So in general, like I said, if you're applying to more than one school, you're probably going to be going through Common App and doing that, just because all of the schools are there for you. This is what Common App looks like. You actually can make your Common App account whenever you would like. You don't necessarily have to wait until senior year. So if you're ever going to make that, just make sure that you're choosing first year student. You're not a transfer student. Even if you have dual enrollment credits, you still will not be considered transfer. So first year student. And then you'll see that there's several tabs at the top. The first one I recommend going to is the college search. You can put in any schools that you're considering, and basically then you'll be able to see some different admissions criteria for them. So you'll add all of your schools. And then under the Common App tab, you actually, again, can fill out this whenever you would like. This will roll over year to year. Of course, check it each year because there might be new questions, but you can really fill this out whenever. So the Common App tab is what makes this common, is that basically you're going to put this information in once, and then it's going to go to all of the schools that you apply to, versus going to a website and then you would have to put it in separately each time. The reason that I had recommended putting some of your schools in first is because if you do go ahead and add your schools in first, and then you click on the writing section, you'll be able to see what schools are going to require an essay and which schools would not require an essay. So under the not required part, the language is a little bit tricky there. And I know sometimes students think that if they do the essay, that they're going to have a better chance at those schools. And the truth is, if the school is on not required, they are not going to be looking at those essays, whether you have one or not. It means they're a non-holistic school, which means they're only going to be using your GPA, your test scores, and they may also be looking at the rigor of your coursework, but they won't be looking at any extracurriculars, and they won't be looking at any essays. If the essay is required, then that means they're a holistic school. So holistic schools will, of course, still look at your GPA, your test scores, and the rigor of your coursework. But then in addition, they're going to be looking at your writing component as well as your activity section, which is right above writing. You'll be able to put in 10 different activities that you would like highlighted on your application. The essay is going to be maximum of 650 words, and there will be several prompts, but the college advisors at our universities always recommend doing the last prompt, which is essay of your choice. That way you're not limited and in a box on some of the prompts, and you can choose something that's going to be unique to you. The most important thing is that it's a personal essay, a personal narrative that shows your voice and shows things beyond your application. Once you go under the My Colleges tab on Common App, it's going to look like this. You'll see all of your colleges to the left that you've personally added. You can get rid of those, if you decide not to apply to a certain college, but in general, that's where the colleges you're going to apply for are going to be. You would not want to fill any of this out until August 1st of your senior year, because this is going to be year specific. So currently, this is the class of 25 application. In August 1st of this year, then the class of 26 application will be on this tab. You can look at this tab though all you'd like. You can look at the questions, look at any of the information that they provide on, the normal deadlines, but you would not want to write anything on this tab. This is the one tab that will not roll over. So Common App tab, that's fine. My Colleges tab is more of a look, don't touch. So the way you would actually submit the application is you're going to do the questions for each of the colleges. You can see I've got Florida Atlantic up right now. You're going to put in your recommender, which is just basically putting in your counselor. They're not actually writing a recommendation for you. It's just they're putting your transcript in there and some other information. And then you'll review and submit and pay on that review and submit tab. And then you'll go to your next application and basically do the same thing. So just a quick note, all of our Florida public universities, except for FAMU, do not consider any type of recommendation. So you can't submit a personal recommendation or a teacher recommendation for our Florida public universities, aside from FAMU is the one that that does require one teacher recommendation. A lot of private universities will require them though. And if it does, then it will let you know. It'll say that there's one required, and then you'll be able to put the recommender in, and you'll put them in on Common App, and then they'll be able to submit this through Common App as well. So it is going to ask you in that question section for each of the universities what term you're applying for. So fall, of course, is the most traditional term that we think of going over in August and starting our college season. But summer is going to be probably what half of our students are going to be offered. So you're more than welcome to apply for fall or summer. If you apply for fall and you don't quite meet the criteria, then they may offer you summer, or they could technically even offer you a spring admission. So what I always tell students is put the semester that you would like to go, and then they will let you know what you qualify for. If you get summer, which half of our students will, for most of the schools, you will be able to do that online from home unless you choose to go over to campus. The only campuses that do require you to go if you get summer admission is going to be FSU and UF. You will have to go in person for those, but the rest you could just do it through the Canvas platform and do the classes online from home. When should you apply? So in general, we are going to apply by the early action and priority deadline, which is either going to be October 15th or November 1st. In general, you're probably going to have a mix of those dates. So I always just recommend go ahead and get everything in by October 15th. That way you're not missing anything and you've got one date to follow. There are some special programs that might have their own special deadlines, but in general, it's going to be one of those two deadlines. One of the big things that people do is they don't apply to schools until they have their perfect test scores. And that's probably one of the biggest errors that I see. We do not want to wait on our test scores to apply. You want to apply early because the longer that you wait, and they do date your applications, the longer that you wait, the more competitive the cycle is going to become. So we send our test scores that we have, and then we continue to send our test scores each time we test, and they will continue to update our application with our highest scores. Everything is always going to be super scored to benefit the applicant. With all of our early action and priority decisions, you will receive all of your decisions before you go on winter break, with the exception of UF, which would be in late January. And those decisions can be admit, defer, which kind of just puts you off. They want more information, probably another test score, or you could get denied. So just keep that in mind that you really will have the vast majority of your decisions before you go on that winter break, aside from UF. Major really does not matter on your application. Each of the schools will ask you what you plan to major in, but just remember that the vast majority of freshmen are going to change their major. So universities do not in general admit based on the major because their numbers would be all skewed by the end of this when all the students change the major. Now, some schools do have special programs that if you do put the major, you might be considered for that. So I always tell students, if you know what you want to major in, go ahead and put that down. But if you don't, go ahead and choose undecided or exploratory, and that will not be held against you. That's one of the most popular majors. If you look at like the popular majors that are admitted, it's going to be undecided and exploratory because a lot of students haven't selected that yet. The SSAR is going to be one of the biggest ways that you provide your transcript. So back in the day, I used to send the transcripts directly to the schools for the students, and they don't do that anymore. They put this in the students' hands. The students will have to create an account through the SAR platform, and you can see all of the schools that require the SAR. So it's most of our Florida public universities. And basically, they'll print a transcript from my student or get it from their counselor, and they're going to be reporting all of their high school coursework through this SSAR portal. And this is what the colleges use for the grades section, and then they're able to basically manipulate the grades. Someone did ask in the last session, I don't think we mentioned it in this session, but the universities are going to be looking at your core weighted GPA. So when students are entering all of this information in at the university level, then they can take, basically pick and choose the classes that they're using for the GPA. So they're going to be using in general math, English, science, social studies, your foreign language, and then any AP academic electives. So those in general is what's going to make up your core weighted GPA. Now, UCF is not on this list. They use their own version of SAR. It's called the Spark, and you will do this after you apply. They will send you an email to set up that portal, and the Spark will be in the portal. So you'll put your grades into their system one more time. So in general, most people are going to be putting in their transcript 2 times, one into SAR and one into Spark. So this is just what the SAR looks like. Basically, there's going to be a section where you put your colleges and universities. This is mostly going to be a Florida thing. There are a few out-of-state schools, but it's mostly, I'd say, a Florida thing. You're going to be entering your high school in here, and then you'll be able to see the subject area. So you'll go over to that enter and edit side, and that's where you'll actually start entering in your coursework. And this is kind of what it looks like. So this would be under the math section, and you would just pretty much do the drop downs and start with 9th grade, enter the title, the name, the level, everything will be semester for our schools. And then you'll go and find on the transcript what was the first semester grade and second semester grade, and you'll do that for every single class. You'll also do it for your senior coursework, but you won't have grades. So in that grade section, you'll choose in progress. Now, not every school is going to require the SAR, especially private schools. So it's really important for the student to understand how that school is getting the transcript if it's not through SAR. So that would be the student's responsibility to figure out, do they need it emailed? Do you need to do official requests with the school? How is that school getting the transcript? And then making sure that you communicate with your counselor or career specialist or registrar in order to get the transcript to the school in whatever way they designate. For students that are taking dual enrollment, even if they plan to earn their AA degree with their high school diploma, you still are applying as that freshman first time in college student. It doesn't mean you're not going to get your credits. You'll still get all of your credits, but you're not transferring as a junior level student under that transfer process. 12 credit hours in your lower level courses outside of high school are required to be a transfer student. Now, if students have their AA, most of the schools in Florida now will look at them without test scores if they designate that they are going to earn their AA. They basically can just look at their GPA and their dual enrollment GPA and make a decision if the student does not meet the test score requirement. For UF and FSU, you don't necessarily need the test score requirement part of it, but you are going to need all of the prerequisites for the majors. And most of the majors, it's going to be hard to get those as part of the AA. So with that one, it's a little bit trickier, but let's say USF, UCF, they can really consider you just with your GPA if you don't meet those test score requirements and you're going to be getting your AA, but you're still applying as a freshman, first time in college student. All dual enrollment students are going to send their transcript through PHSC at the end of their senior year to whatever school they plan to attend, and that's how those credits will get transferred. And then also just make sure that you understand for each of your schools if they need official test scores from College Board or ACT in order to complete your application. Most schools do need official test scores from the testing agencies to have a complete application. All schools are going to require that final transcript after graduation, even though they're not considering senior grades in the admissions decision. They are going to be looking that you earned those same types of grades that they admitted you with. So you will be requesting that from your registrar, and that usually is going to be May of your senior year. If you're taking any AP exams, again, senior year, you want to make sure that you're putting the school down by May that you know that you're going to, so that they can get all of your exam scores over to the school and they can transfer those into credits for you. And just off topic, AP exam scores for any of the Florida universities are not used as part of the admissions decision. They do use the classes as part of the rigor, but they don't look at the scores as part of the admissions decision. Now, some of the more selective private schools, they will want to see those exam scores. For SAT and ACT, just understand that, if you're a junior, you probably are testing this week or very soon, and you're going to keep testing. You can test for all of our Florida public universities basically through October. For some of the schools, you can test through November and December. Get with your career specialist on which schools have which deadlines. But for all of the schools, you can absolutely at least test through October. So even though you are going to be taking that SAT and hopefully an ACT junior year, I would recommend studying a lot over the summer and then basically coming back and taking those August and September tests when you get back to put with your application. And then finally, for the SAT and ACT, when you register, the tests are expensive. They're about $60. When you register, you do get 4 free score sends. And it's really important that you select your universities to receive the scores when you register for the test. If students wait until they get their score, you're going to have to spend $18 per school to send the scores afterwards. So remember, they don't hold scores against you. They're always going to super score you. So always send all scores when you register so that they go automatically, and so you don't have to pay that $18 per school afterwards, because there's a lot of payments. There's the application payment, there's the test payment, and we don't want to add on the score send payment. And then this is what it looks like on the portal. You'll just go to your registration and click score sends, and then you can add your 4 schools. The portals I had mentioned earlier, but just remember, after you submitting your applications, it's extremely important to look for those emails to set up each university portal so that you can check that everything's been received and then eventually have your admissions decision. I hate seeing when students don't check these and then they come to me in like February and they're like, they never got my whatever it is. And I know they haven't been checking these because this is something we could have handled, in October or November, and now they're in like a very competitive batch of students. I'm going to skip the residency, but this is just what you would use to prove residency for in-state tuition. The essay, I talked a little bit about that. I highly recommend, and I have in here College Essay Guy and College Essay Advisors. You can just Google it, but they're great websites. I wouldn't recommend paying for anything, but they have a ton of free resources, free samples that you can read, and then even different exercises to kind of help you come up with topics. But remember, the most important thing with the essay is creating that deep connection for the reader and having a unique perspective on something. We don't want to rehash what's already on our application. That's all cut and dry information. So this is really the only time they'll be able to hear that voice and that individuality of our application. So definitely pay attention to the word count. I would say, 650 is the max, but I would say, make sure it's between 500 and 650. You really wouldn't want it any shorter than that. Honors College, I'll leave for you guys to look at that later, but that is something that is offered from the universities, and they each do it different ways. So I'll just pop that into the presentation for you guys to look at a little bit later, because I know we're running quick on time here. May 1st is College Decision Day, and the way that you make your decision for college is by paying the enrollment deposit. It's usually $200 or $250, and that's how you accept. In general, the earlier that you want to go there, that's the earliest I would pay. As you pay, then that will open up the housing portal. So if your student plans to go away or live on campus, you want to basically do that as soon as possible, and you can't really do that until you pay that enrollment deposit. So as soon as go ahead and pay that, so then you can get into the housing portal and get on the list for priority housing. This is just a great checklist to use as you're applying to school senior year, just basically going through for each and every school one by one and making sure that you've answered all these questions and that that you've done each of these tasks. And then I won't be going through this, but this is on the presentation for you. I have each of the schools and what it requires, how you can do their applications, how the transcript is required, and their early action deadlines as of what they were this year. They could change, but they probably will stay the same. So that's just great for you. PHSC is going to be more of a spring senior year thing. So universities is going to be in the fall. PHSC is something that starting in January of senior year, January, February, or March is when you would do your applications for that. And usually for most schools, they will come out to the school. So just kind of look out for that or talk to your college counselor about that. Just wanted to plug Xello really quickly. Your student has access to this on their Pasco Connect dashboard. They'll see this Xello app on the dashboard. It's probably their last app. This is an awesome, awesome opportunity for them to go onto this website. They already have an account, so they just click the app and it will take them directly to the website into their account. They can research colleges, favorite colleges. They can do career research on here, which I really like that. And they can also do some different career interest inventories and resumes. Okay, at this point, I'll go ahead and take any questions that anyone might have. And I'm also going to pop in to the chat the presentation. So let me go ahead and get that in, and then we'll look at some of these questions. Okay, so let me go ahead and I'm going to just go back and look at some of the questions. The matrix for the Florida schools, I just popped my presentation into the chat, so that'll be there for you. The foreign language, Spanish 1 taken in 8th grade and 2 in 9th grade, that's fine. You can just look on the student's transcript in My Student, but it should be on there for high school, but that's fine. Students take that in middle school all the time. AP scores on your transcript, you need to send them separately. So the AP scores will need to be sent only to the school that you end up going to. They'll need to be sent through their AP classroom, so through College Board. That's a great question. What schools do you know that offer the radiography program? The radiography program is offered by PHSC and also by HCC. Those are the ones that I would recommend. It is a limited access program, so there are going to be some prerequisite classes that you would do your first year at the community college level, and then you'd be applying into the program. It is a pretty competitive program, but HCC in Hillsborough, which is Hillsborough Community College in Tampa, and then Pasco also has that. For students who plan to finish high school in less than 4 years, when should they apply? So it's going to be the same process, but they're going to be applying kind of that junior/senior year, which is going to be that same year. So whatever their last year is, that's when they're applying. And I would say, unless there's like a specific reason for them to finish early, what I usually recommend is the students do full-time dual enrollment instead of graduating early. because that gives them another year also to meet the Bright Futures test scores, as well as university test scores if they plan to go to the university. That would just be my my 2 cents there. A good idea to have your associates done before graduating high school. So you're not really going to be a freshman by credits. You're just going to be applying as a freshman. You're not a transfer student because you have to have 12 hours of college credit done after high school to be considered a transfer. So you are applying still as a freshman, but you will still get all of your credits. As far as is it a good idea? You know, it's got its pros and cons. I mean, pros, obviously, you're getting 2 years done and you're not paying for it. I would say one of the big cons would be if your student does not know what they're going to major in, that can be a little bit tricky because all of the gen ed requirements will be finished and you kind of have to get into a program. So if they don't know what they want to major in, that's where I usually see things be a little tricky. Sometimes also the age can work against them. Like, let's say they're trying to go into medical or, you know, engineering or something like really competitive, where it would be good for them to have internships. Sometimes it's better to be spending more years at the university so you have time to do those types of programs for your applications that are going to be coming later, like med school and such. Same for the students in the Cambridge program. I would say in general, yes. Obviously, you know, when your counselor puts in information in Common App, there is something where they're going to check that you have the Cambridge or you're getting the Cambridge diploma. So that'll be a little, you know, feather in your cap on your application. I would speak with the career specialist at the Cambridge school just to make sure. But in general, I would say, you know, 99% of what I presented will be the same. Any other questions? And feel free to unmute if you don't want to type it or if it's too complex. I'll do another minute or two here. Let's see, GPA. Okay, AP English 1. So the colleges, for AP English, the colleges are just going to, and hopefully this answers, the college is going to use the grade part of it for the GPA calculation, yes. Now, you obviously have to pass the test at the end of the year if you want to get the credit portion of it. So if it's a 91, then that's going to be an A. Whether it's a 90 to a 99 or to 100, that's just going to count as that 4, and then plus they'll get the extra point for it being an AP class. So it'll go in as like a 5.0 on a 4.0 scale. I hope that answers your question. Medical courses. So the biggest ones, if you plan to go to you're pretty much probably going to be majoring in biology or health sciences at college. Chemistry is going to be super, super important. So after biology, students should take chemistry. They could take anatomy. AP Bio, I would highly recommend. AP Chem if they think they can handle it. But for medical school in general, you're going to be taking Chem 1, Chem 2, Organic Chem 1, Organic Chem 2, Biochem. So there's tons and tons of chem. So a background or foundation in chem would be super helpful. How many credits you need for an associate's? It's 60 credits. It's 20 classes. So basically every class is going to be about 3. So it's 20 times 3 is going to be your 60 credits, but you need them in certain categories. If you email me, my email is on the first slide. If you email me, I can actually send you the associate's program so that you can see what that looks like. Anyone else before we head out? All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate you coming on, and feel free to email me if you need anything. Have a good night.